Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser was once a mortal warlord named Sanuzal, and he ruled through conquest and fear. His empire was large enough that its collapse still left scars on the regions that came after it. But the defining part of his story begins after his death. According to the official lore, Mordekaiser learned necromantic magic so advanced that he was able to return from death itself, and more importantly, he gained the ability to permanently bind souls to his will. These souls don't just move on naturally, they remain bound to him even when his physical body is destroyed. Mordekaiser has been defeated and sealed away more than once in history, but his lore makes it clear that these defeats don't undo what he creates. So his soul bindings persist and his influence lingers long enough that later civilizations built over the remains of his empire. And it's why the immortal bastion matters so much in his story. It's not just a fortress, but a structure built atop ruins linked to Mordekaiser's reign. So his presence never fully leaves the world. In this quote, he even says it.
Core filled a crumbling sky, as souls withered to nothing, but I refuse to fade.
The line works because it reflects exactly how his power is described in the lore. Mordekaiser gets a 4 out of 5 destroyed Runeterra score. Mordekaiser isn't gonna suddenly blow up the entire planet, rather he's gonna slowly survive, conquer, and grow his empire. A world ruled by him wouldn't end quickly, but eventually all would bend to his will. Belveth. So Belveth is a void-born entity created from the destruction of a living city. So unlike most void creatures, she thinks, remembers, and even plans. She doesn't really see herself as like a monster, but as an empress. Belveth represents a major turning point in the Void's lore. So she was created when the Void consumed the port city of Belveth, destroying it completely. And according to her official lore, instead of the city just turning into random void matter, something new formed there, with memories, thoughts, and experiences from the people who live there. Most void creatures sort of act on instinct, hunger, or simple directives. Belveth doesn't. She shows patience, long-term planning, and an understanding of cause and effect. She's capable of waiting, and her goal is not really just simple destruction. So she's trying to create this thing called the Lavender Sea, which is described as a transformed version of reality shaped by her will. And while the exact scope of this transformation is left intentionally vague, it's framed as a replacement rather than a complete annihilation that you would think of when you typically think of the Void. So Belveth is representing a turning point in the Void's history, and it no longer needing chaos to succeed, which is just crazy in the scope of Runeterra. Belveth gets a 4.5 out of 5 destroy Runeterra score. She'd be pretty bad if she got what she wanted, and she would overwrite basically all of Runeterra. I mean, it would still exist in form, but it wouldn't have the meaning, memory, or autonomy that it once had. And this makes her one of the most insidious threats in the lore. She gets a 4 out of 5 because it doesn't get much worse than the Void taking control of the planet as we know it. Rise. So, Rise is an ancient mage and one of the last survivors of the Rune Wars. He wanders the world alone, searching for powerful artifacts known as world runes. Not to use them, but to keep them from ever being used again. So, on this list of world-ending threats, Rise doesn't look like he would fit in at first, which is part of what makes the story so dangerous. The lore kind of confirms that the world runes were responsible for one of the most destructive periods in League history, which was the Rune Wars. And during the Rune Wars, people fought over these runes and used them basically without restraint. I mean, entire civilizations were destroyed, large portions of history were lost, and parts of the land were permanently altered. Some nations were so erased completely that only fragments of their existence remain in records. And Rise lived through this period, and the trauma of it defines his character. So one of the most important details in his lore is that Rise actually kills his own mentor after that mentor tried to use the world rune. And it was not really out of ambition or personal gain. It was done because Rise already understood what happened when somebody thought they could control that level of power. He doesn't really try to destroy the world runes. In fact, the lore explicitly states they're too dangerous to be destroyed. So Rise has to spend his entire life hiding them and moving them around constantly to keep them out of anyone's control. In this quote, he even says it.
I find the runes so they won't be found by someone else. Or something.
That line feels less like philosophy and more like a warning shaped by experience, which is why he doesn't trust anyone with that power, including himself. Rise gets a 3 out of 5 destroyed Runeterra score. Rise himself is not the threat, the world runes are. His entire existence is proof that Runeterra has already been destroyed, and could be destroyed again if even a single mistake is made. So while the danger definitely exists, it hinges more on failure rather than intent. Viego. Viego was once the king of Camivore whose love for his wife consumed him. He refused to accept her death, and so Viego attempts to bring her back by submerging her in the waters of the Blessed Isles, which he thinks would bring her back to life. Unknowingly to him, it triggers an event known as the Ruination, which was a catastrophe that permanently alters the world of Runeterra. So this event destroys the Blessed Isles and gives rise to the Black Mist, which is a supernatural force that spreads corruption and the undead, sort of bringing back people as these corrupted zombies. According to the lore, the Black Mist is directly connected to Viego's will and emotions, so it continues to spread because his grief and obsession never really stops. And it makes the Ruination less of a historical event and more of an ongoing condition. Another aspect of Viego's danger is how widely his influence has already spread. So the Black Mist doesn't just stay in the Blessed Isles, you know, it actually appears across multiple regions, affecting people in places far removed from the original Ruination. And it really shows that Viego's actions permanently destabilize the boundary between life and death in certain areas. The lore also makes it clear that the Ruination isn't really a calculated plan, it's a result of his obsession sort of overriding everything, and Viego is really just this unpredictable force in Runeterra because his power surges are more driven by emotion rather than any sort of strategy or goal. Viego gets a 3.5 out of 5 destroyed Runeterra score, mostly because Viego is not necessarily trying to end the world. It mostly comes from his inability to stop grieving and trying to find Isol. Left in check, if the Ruination spreads indefinitely, his threat is definitely there, but he's not trying to blow up the world or take it over completely. It more so comes from instability. Xerath. Xerath was once a mortal in ancient Shurima who sought freedom and power after being the former slave of a young Azir. After helping Azir rise to power and seeing him fail to meet his requests, he realizes that he's got to take things into his own hands. So he convinces Azir to use the power of Ascension stored in the Stream and Sundials, a process known as the Ascension Ritual. And during the Ascension Ritual, Xerath pushes Azir out of the way and claims the power of Ascension for himself. Instead of becoming an Ascended though, his body gets overwhelmed by the magic and is transformed into pure arcane energy. And according to the lore, Xerath couldn't really be destroyed at the time, which is why he gets sealed away instead. Xerath's ambitions are centered on power and domination tied to Shurima, but the real danger lies in the fact that his existence itself is unstable. He's made entirely of magic and held together rather by containment than form. And if he were ever to be freed, the amount of pure energy uncaged could destroy all of Runeterra. Xerath gets a 4 out of 5 destroyed Runeterra score, and Xerath represents a catastrophic failure. His destruction probably wouldn't be deliberate, but accidental on a massive scale, and it's a disaster waiting to be unsealed. If his pure energy were uncaged, it could actually blow up Runeterra, which is why he gets a 4 out of 5. Aurelian Soul. Aurelian Soul is a celestial dragon who existed long before Runeterra. He forges stars as naturally as others breathe, and his power operates on a cosmic scale. He creates celestial bodies as an expression of his power. He was deceived by the aspects of Targon into wearing a magical crown that bound his power, and through this binding, the aspects were able to draw upon a portion of his power to shape the entire world and create structures like the sun disk. So even while restrained, Aurelian's soul still remains aware. And he's aware of his imprisonment. He's not passive. He watches, he remembers, and he resents the forces that bound him. According to his lore, he views the aspect's actions as theft on a cosmic scale. They didn't create Runeterra, and yet they're using his power to shape it and impose their order. This places Aurelian's soul in direct oppositions to the forces that currently maintain the entire world structure. If he's ever freed, his power would certainly devastate Runeterra and end all of the aspects in an act of revenge. Aurelian Soul gets a 5 out of 5 destroyed Runeterra score. To him, the world is small, borrowed, and expendable, and he has both the motives and the means to erase it entirely. If he were ever free of his bounds, Runeterra would certainly be destroyed.